Hello, welcome to another YouTube Live. Here I am every Monday, and here we have another live class for you. And today I want to talk about some simple phrases that we use in NLP, some NLP phrases that can be really useful, and they can really help us to transform whatever experience we might be experiencing and help us to remember, come back to alignment, come back to center, and to make choices from a more grounded, centered place rather than jumping into the ego reactions and like getting all emotional and responsive to whatever might be happening. So I wanted to cover that today. Some of you might know about NLP, some of you might not know about NLP. NLP is something that I've been working with for the last 11 years. Can you believe it? And it's not everything that I do, though it's a huge part of what I do. And I've worked with many clients over the years, helping them to come back to a sense of calm and center and help them to reduce anxiety and boost their confidence. This is something that is very common, especially the last few years, that so many people have been really like with everything that's going on in the world, everything that we've experienced in the last few years. It's like, I mean, I'm laughing, but it's not a laughable matter. It's like, it's so ridiculous, the amount of stuff that we've gone through as humanity, that is like, can't quite believe it. Though it's just, yeah, and it's no wonder that so many people are experiencing increased sense of anxiety, overwhelm, stress, feeling like they can't go on, that they can't continue, that what's the point? Many different things. And also just like on a personal level, a lot of people going through lots of breakups or divorces, separations, lots of people struggling with health issues, lots of people struggling with mental health issues. Like, there's so many things going on. So NLP can really help us. I mean, many things can help us, obviously, though NLP really helps us to come back to this state of, or this position of taking responsibility for our life. And it's all about, okay, what can I do? What can I do to make a change in the life that I'm experiencing? Like, what can I do to help experience it in a different way and take some learnings, take some insights? Because if we're only focused on the problem and only seeing the problem and only thinking about the problem, all we'll see is the problem. We'll just continue this cycle. So there are certain phrases that can really help us, and I'll share some of these today with you. So just for a little quick recap, if anyone is completely new to NLP, a very quick way to describe it, it's somewhere in between coaching and hypnosis. So NLP is somewhere in the middle. And we work with the unconscious mind, and it's all about bringing back change. So the phrases I want to talk about today are some of the very first things that you will learn in NLP if you do a training, or if you go and see a practitioner. They might mention some of these in terms of like when you're sharing about what challenges might be coming up for you. They might share some of these because these are really important, fundamental basics that can really lay the foundation and can help us create change. And these are what we call presuppositions, NLP presuppositions. So these are statements and phrases that we presuppose to be true, and we take them on as if they're true to then help create a more resourceful state as a coach, as a practitioner, or to help the client also to really see things from a different point of view and start taking responsibility for what they can create change in. Obviously, I'm not talking about like all the challenges and all the problems are all your fault, or or like none of them are your fault. It's like taking responsibility for what we have control over, and that is focused on our thoughts, our emotions, like what actions we can take. There are many things that we can influence rather than just being like, hey, like, I'm a victim, or the everything's going wrong, or blah blah blah, like focusing on what's going wrong. It's like, okay, this is challenging. What can I do, and how can I go about it? So some of these presuppositions, there are many. There's a whole list here that you often learn about on trainings, but I won't go through every single one because not every single one is relevant. And there are just a few key ones that I wanted to mention today that can be really important. So whether you are an individual looking to create change in your life, or you are working with people, I have many coaches and therapists and people working in the wellness space also that follow my work. So you might find some of these useful also, because these are very important to keep in mind if you're working with people. So the first one, probably one of the most important ones, and ones that I think most of humanity can take on board, especially the last few years, is respect other people's model of the world. So what I mean by model of the world is how people see the world. So respect other people's perception or perspective of the world, like how they see the world. Doesn't mean that we put up with injustice or abusive behaviors, or like anything like that really doesn't need to be, that obviously needs to be sorted out if there are certain important things there. Doesn't mean that we put up with that and just don't do anything. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just like respecting, like if there are certain, like you're having for example, in a simple example, you're in a relationship and one person loves one type of food and the other person loves another type of food. And one person is so adamant that their perspective, like their way of seeing things, is the right way. That's how it is. Everyone should love that type of food, and that's what we're going to eat. And they're so attached to that. It's the ego that's attached to that. And then the other person is exactly the same. So they're arguing and they're saying, no, it's like this, or this is the best type. And then it becomes this argument. I mean, I'm using a really silly, like simple example, but you get the idea. You might have seen on social media, you might have seen this image of two people arguing whether something like a number is a 6 or a 9, depending according to how they're seeing things. Why not just agree that it's a number? Why not just agree that it's a shape? Why not agree that, who knows, whoever placed that there, maybe they had an intention for it to be a certain way or certain position, or not. Maybe they just intended a discussion to come up. There are many different ways to look at this. So the whole point is just really bearing this in mind, that we have our model of the world, our map, our pair of glasses, like how we, like I have my pair of glasses, other people have their pair of glasses. And this is all of our beliefs, our filters, our unconscious filters. So if in my map, in my model, my way of seeing the world, I have certain beliefs about things and I'm really attached to those beliefs, and I'm seeing like that's how it is, then when someone comes up with a contrasting belief, then I have a choice to either get curious, be open-minded, curious, and listen and learn. Doesn't mean I have to take on their belief, though I could get curious. That's interesting. Someone sees something differently to me. Or I could just be so attached to my beliefs and try and argue my way and try and convince the other person that they now need to start believing what I believe. And this is what most people do, that they're so attached to their beliefs, they're so attached to the way that they see life, because a lot of this is to do with the ego, the identity, And it's almost like this comfort blanket, and there are a lot of fears. There are a lot of things that could be from childhood related to this, which is why some people hold on to this so much. Or like when something challenges their belief system so much, it challenges their whole identity. So sometimes that is so scary for some people that they just much rather hold on to the belief and fight for that. So we have a choice. We have a choice to either get curious, learn, aim to be a little bit more loving and open-minded, open-hearted, and just like doesn't mean we put up with abusive behaviors, like I mentioned, or doesn't mean we can't disagree or set boundaries, or doesn't mean that we can disagree, though we can listen, we can learn without trying to force and dominate the other person and try and get them to believe what we believe. This is so important if we're professionals in the field, in the wellness field. This is one of the number one things for therapists, for coaches, for any professional, like especially for therapists and coaches, to not influence the client with your belief system. Like you're there as a neutral person, a professional, to use specific tools and techniques to help your client to get to a sense of peace and calm and centeredness and feeling good in themselves, but not according to your belief system, not according to what you think is right or wrong from your personal belief system. Of course, you're there to guide as a professional and help them with your professional expertise and experience, though not to put on your personal beliefs onto the client. So that's really important. So not only is this relevant for individuals, just in relationships when we're relating with loved ones, whether that's a romantic relationship, whether that's with friends, whether that's with family members. This is a big one with family members. When you have people all around the table from family, this is why Christmas time for many people is such a big deal, with lots of like conflicting perspectives or opinions on things. And yeah, it's just bearing that in mind and just coming back to this place of, okay, yeah, I respect that you have a different perspective. I respect that you have your own belief system and I have mine. And the reality is somewhere in the middle between the two. Because as I mentioned, we have our belief system. So I have my belief system, what I'm looking through, what's filtering my experience, and the other person has their belief system. So they have another set of beliefs that they're filtering their experience through that. And the reality is something in the middle. It's like how we see life and how we're viewing life according to our belief system. We are distorting it, we're generalizing it, we're making deletions, we're seeing everything according to our perspective, and that influences our experience in life. And the same with other people. But the reality, like what's actually happening is something in the middle between the two people. Obviously, like we're creating our reality, the other person's creating their reality, and then there's something else in the middle. There's this larger quantum field. So that's the first one, the first presupposition: respect other people's model of the world. And yeah, and there's many like layers to this, like how, like according to the belief system, that then influences their behavior, how they are going about things and what they're doing. So if they have certain beliefs that all men are, fill in the blank, or all women are, fill in the blank, or all people are, fill in the blank, if there are certain negative beliefs related to that, that could influence behavior, that could influence their whole experience in life. So this is a huge topic. this is a big part of NLP, just really getting to that understanding that, okay, yeah, how we choose to see life, what we believe about life has a big knock-on effect on our experience, and how we choose to see life and what we believe about life is just that, what we believe about life. It's our model of the world, and other people can have theirs. So another one for you. I'll give you a couple in this class, and if there are any questions, you can just pop them in the description, in the chat. That'll be great. You can just pop in, and if there's anything that you want to know, I love it when it becomes this interactive experience as well. It's just such a lovely thing to connect. Okay, so another one. So this one comes up a lot for those people who are perfectionists, those people who love everything to be perfect or are trying to control and make everything perfect, like trying to have everything okay. And often what's behind that is this, again, this energy of control, but it's almost like there's this anxiety of, this is something I talk about with a lot of clients when we're working on the topic of anxiety, that there's this tendency of like wanting everything to be perfect, worrying about how other people perceive you, or what you're offering to the world, or what you're doing, or like the work that you're doing, or in relationships, or like body image, wanting everything to be perfect. There's many different layers to this, and it's just so important just to notice that this phrase, the presupposition that we have in NLP, that there's no failure, there's always feedback. There's always feedback. So it's not about getting things perfect. It's not about having everything so orderly or tidy, or no imperfections whatsoever, or never making any errors whatsoever. This is the thing. If we make no mistakes ever in life, where would be the stories? Where would be the experiences? Where would be the wisdom? Where would be the gifts? Where would be the insights? Where would be all of those things? Where would be the skills? Where would be the new knowledge? We wouldn't have any of that if we didn't make mistakes. Making mistakes, slipping up, not getting things right, not having everything perfect. There's so much feedback in that. So there's no failure, only feedback. So whatever you're doing, whatever you're experiencing in life, I mean, of course, obviously, some people will argue and say, well, yeah, I did an exam and I did fail. Like they put a mark on there. Of course, there are certain situations in life where in society they are graded and marked, and this is one of the ways that the whole schooling system can be very controversial, about how it gears people to really look out for mistakes and look out for what's wrong, and to get people wanting to have everything perfect. That's a whole topic that though it's just shifting that perspective and just really seeing so-called failures as redirections, as gifts, as insight, as learning opportunities, as opportunities for growth. And it's simply just an opportunity to gain feedback. So if you try something and it doesn't work, what's the feedback? If like a relationship doesn't work out, what's the feedback? What did you learn? If you're trying you're creating a new project, or you want to set up a business, or something like that, what's the feedback there? There's always feedback. There's always feedback. We can look at all the ways that perhaps there were mistakes or errors, and that can give us an indication into what doesn't work and also an indication into what could work. So there's always feedback. No failure, always feedback. So that's another one. And there's so many. I'm looking at the list and there are so many. Okay, I'll give you one more. Okay, so people have all the resources that they need to create a change. Now, this sometimes can bring up can be a little bit controversial, because obviously there are situations where there is privilege. There are people who have go through incredible hardship and have very challenging situations and go through big life lessons. And there's a lot of, it's a huge topic. Though what this presupposition is talking about is that everyone has the resources within them to create a change, or in order to achieve their desired outcome, or to really like shift the experience in some way. And one example is, I'm sure you've heard of the book Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And it's a very powerful book. And he's talking about how there are some people in concentration camps, and he was one of them. And he noticed that the people who were surviving were the people who had attached some meaning of significance to the situation, in terms of, I'm going to get through this because this will help me to fill in the blank. So for him personally, that was, I'm going to get through this because one day I'm going to write a book about it and I'm going to help lots of people. And that's what kept him going. Like, that's what helped him get through that horrific experience. Now, of course, this, like, when we're talking about big experiences like that, it's easier said than done, right? And most of us have no idea what it's like to go through an experience like that. Though the whole point of this presupposition, and the reason why I'm bringing this up, is that it's important to notice that whatever challenge we're going through, whether that is something, most of us, it's on a much smaller scale. So perhaps there's some relationship conflict, maybe there's some money issues, maybe some health issues, maybe some work issues, like something along those lines. And sometimes we can think that, oh, it's all hopeless, everything's going wrong. Like, you know, when you seem like you've woken up on the wrong side of the bed, and you just think that everything's going wrong, and you're just having the worst day ever. As some people talk about it like that. And deep within, people have all the resources that they need in order to create a change. There is the ability to see a different option, or expand the perspective, or recognize the choices. There are always choices involved. And yes, of course, some people have come from a very privileged background, and some people are less fortunate. But what I'm talking about is, generally speaking, that the vast majority of people are completely overlooking the fact that there are many more choices available to them than they realize. And it's all about expanding the perspective and seeing what else is there. It's like, oh, okay, yes, there's so much more. So a great question that I love to ask clients is, how is life inviting you to expand right now? So if you're going through a challenge, if there's something that's happening, just ask yourself that question and get curious. Like, okay, this is coming up in a relationship, or this is coming up in work, like whatever the challenge is, how is life inviting you to expand right now? What's the opportunity? What's the opportunity? There's always something there that we can learn, that we can grow, we can evolve, we can discover something new. We can seek help, learn a new skill, like reach out, ask for support. There's so many opportunities, so many options. And many people forget this, and they're so fixated on problem and like, oh, this is all wrong, and this this is what's happening, and just seeing it as this terrible situation. Doesn't mean to take away that there aren't circumstances or experiences that are very tough. Of course there are. Though it's like, okay, how can we make the most of this? How can we make the most of this? How can we use that challenge, use that experience, and create something from that? Transform that. There are many ways. So, for example, a personal example, like many years ago, those people who have listened to my podcast, who have been following my work for a long time, I experienced panic attacks on a weekly basis. And this was about 11 years ago. And that was not fun. It's not a fun experience. If those of you who have experienced that, you can feel like you're dying. You're literally dying. And there are many symptoms involved. But I was experiencing that on a weekly basis. Now, at the time, I found it very difficult, though the more I started to really look at my belief system and get into NLP and look at the emotional side of things and start expressing emotions, like doing all these things, I started to open everything up and recognize the choices that I had, recognize the opportunities that I had, recognize the resources that were within. That there was that ability to question things. There was that ability to seek support, to reach out, find help. There was that ability to like, well, there are many different things, like many different ways. Like, okay, yeah, there are ways to move through this. It's all about moving through something rather than just hiding under the carpet or avoiding it completely. And when we do that, it just becomes a bigger problem. That's what I did most of my life, is that when I was younger, I avoided emotions. So then anxiety and all those emotions just built up like a pressure cooker. And then it became so big, it was like panic attacks, became weekly panic attacks, and then it becomes even bigger. So it's no good avoiding something. It's all about moving through it and just really finding the gifts in that. So whatever challenge is going on at the moment, like, okay, how is life inviting me to expand right now? What opportunities are there? What's possible? Do I need extra support? Can I call a loved one? Can I chat to a friend? Do I need professional support? There are many different options. And recognizing that you do have some resources within already. Even if it's simply just to take a moment just to reflect on things, or take a moment and take a deep breath. Inhale and exhale. Often most of us are not breathing properly, therefore we don't have enough oxygen up in the brain. Therefore we think everything is worse than it really is, that we're not thinking clearly. So just taking an inhale and exhale can really help. Coming back to the body is another one. Often that we're so caught up here with all the thoughts and all the worries and all of the doubts and all of the whatever's going on, and we forget that we have a body. And when we come back to the body, when we move, dancing is my go-to, but for other people it might be running, it might be doing yoga, it might be going for a walk. Come back down into the body, connect with the breath, really come back to that. And then we start to embody our whole body, come back to the whole body, and then we're not living up here. Because when we're living up here, we're only breathing from the upper part of the chest. And everything seems more overwhelming when everything's up here. So it's like bringing it all down to the body. When I was experiencing a lot of anxiety, that I was really connecting to the breath and bringing everything back down, like slowing the breath down, like deep, slow exhales, bringing everything down and putting my focus on my belly or on my feet, like massaging my feet helped a lot as well. But often I'll just place my hand or my finger over my belly button and just breathe to that point. And that just really helped to bring everything down, everything down. So, okay. From there, things can feel much better. And then you look at your challenge, you look at your current situation, whatever is bothering you, from a very different place. Because then you're able to create change and move through that from the whole of you rather than just your head. And this is what most people forget, that most of society, we live so much up in our heads, and so much of society has developed the focus on the brain and all of that, but we've missed the somatics, we've missed the body, and coming back to that is really important. So yeah, just take a inhale and exhale and just really come back to the breath, come back to the breath. So that's a little bit about NLP presuppositions and what can really help. So just to recap, I was talking in the beginning about respect other people's model of the world, respect how other people see things, and really just to recognize that we have all the resources within. We have all the resources within. It's just really coming back to that and recognizing that. And also that there's no failure. There's always feedback. If we slip up, we can get back up again and learn from it. Learn from it, like create whatever obstacle, whatever mistake, whatever thing comes up in our life, use it as a stepping stone rather than a brick wall. Use it as a stepping stone to step up and see the situation from a higher perspective. Like, okay, yes. Yes, there are options. There are always options. So if you have any questions, feel free to pop it in the chat, and I'd love to hear what topics you want me to cover in these weekly classes. I'm here every week, every Monday at 7 Central European Time, and this is a wonderful time where we can talk about all these topics, and I can share some tips and tools, and I'd love to make it even more interactive this year. So it's so lovely to have people joining and watching, and I love getting your questions as well. So you can contact me on Instagram, you can contact me by email, you can pop questions here on YouTube. And a lot of these topics of these classes that I do weekly have come from people requesting topics. So yeah, ask away. I love it. And just to let you know, those of you who are further afield, who are tuning in online and not in the area where I am, then you can tune in to these classes every week or whenever you want, and also have the podcast that's on Spotify. So that's all there. There's plenty of stuff online that I'm doing, and one-on-one sessions are also online. And if you're in the area, if you're in Barcelona, if you're near Villanova i Geltrú, there are a couple of events that are coming up. So this Friday, so the time of this going live, this Friday, the 26th of January, there's a dance class in Villanova, and this will be a really fun, wonderful experience where we're talking all about numerology, and we're exploring that through dance. And this is something that I haven't seen many people do, and it's a really interesting experience just to go through this, because we can learn so much about ourselves through numerology, and to do that through dance as well, and to really get to know the different rhythms of each number, and what each number, like what message each number brings to us, can be really interesting. So by all means, come and join us this Friday. If you want more information, just send me a message. And it's, yeah, and even if you you're not really interested about the numerology, it's a great space just to dance and have fun. Again, coming back to the body, coming back to the breath. And then 15th of February is the next Women's Circle, and that's in Barcelona. And that's going to be a big topic all about self-love, self-care, and boundaries. Boundaries. This is a huge topic for women. It is very important, and all the women's circles that we've had so far have just been so beautiful, and we've had so many amazing women that come and join, and that they just really, they love the experience, and it's just such a beautiful evening to come together and share, and there's drinks and snacks and music and candles, and it's just such a lovely experience. So if you want to create a little bit more self-care, self-love, like come back to that tenderness with yourself, and to learn about boundaries, then this is a great opportunity. So I'll put the link in the description. At the moment, it's not in the description of this live, but I will put it after this live, and that's on the 15th of February. And you can just contact me as well on WhatsApp. Most people send me a WhatsApp with questions, so you can WhatsApp anytime, +34 6226 986 73. So just checking the questions. There are some questions here. So yeah, what the phrases you've named in this live, the phrases, these are 3 NLP presuppositions. And this is something that most people learn right in the beginning of an NLP training. And these are really important for any individual, whether you're a professional working in the wellness field or whether you're an individual. So I was mentioning them earlier, that it's talking about respecting other people's map of the world, like respecting other people's opinions. You can have yours, they can have theirs, and we don't need to try and force anyone to believe what we believe, because often that is the ego wanting to control things. And also, there's no failure, always feedback. So if we make mistakes and there's some, like we slip up or we make a mistake, there's always feedback. It's not a failure, there's feedback there. So learn from it. And then also the last one I talked about is that we all have the resources that we need within. So there's always things within that can help us. A lot of the time we have the answers within, and the problem is that we don't slow down enough, and we don't quieten our mind, we don't sit with ourselves enough to really pay attention to what's within, though the answers are there, and it is there. And if you need extra support with that, that's something I do in one-on-one sessions. And then another question, have you decided when you are coming back with the podcast? Yeah, so the podcast that's on currently, season 1 has ended, and season 2, I will start that at some point. I haven't set a specific date. The thing is that the podcast is a lot of work, and I'm juggling many commitments at the moment. And I love the podcast, and it's something that I really love doing. And a lot of these lives that I'm doing here on YouTube are almost like a little podcast as well. Though I haven't set a specific date, because I need to find a way of, like, I'm still reflecting on how I want to move forward with the podcast, because I need to make it in a way that really works for everyone. And I'm thinking about possibly bringing in some people and interviewing them as well on the podcast, though I won't start it again and set a specific date until I have all of that clear. But that's something I'm reflecting on at the moment. But you have all of the past episodes, and you have these weekly lives to tune in anytime. So there's still plenty of content coming out for free. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for being here, everyone who watched this, and anyone who's watching the replay. And yeah, I'll be back on Monday with more. Wishing you a wonderful rest of the week.